All right, welcome everybody. Now call to order this March 2nd, 2022.
Sorry.
23.
Typo.
This is why I'm reading. Session of the Medfield School Building Committee. Let's begin with a roll call, please. I don't.
Jess-
Yeah, why don't we just go around the
Jessica
room?
Riley,
Jess Riley's here.
Tony Papantonis.
Tony's here. Mike Weber's here.
Mather Eldred here.
Bob Donahoe. Bob Meany. Robert Worth.
Michelle Kirkby, Teresa James, Carolyn Casey.
Steve Brennan. Stevie's here too. We're missing, Dr. Marsden's not here currently. Meredith is missing currently, as well as Bill Werner is also missing. So anybody who's watching on Zoom, we're gonna take a tour of the school. We'll be back 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever it may be. So apologies, but part of the reason why we're meeting in Dale, so we can get a tour of the facility. So that's it. All right, welcome back. We're recording again?
Yeah.
It is 8:04, so a little longer than we anticipated. Steve, thank you so much for the tour and congratulations on the Hall of Fame induction again. In case you didn't know, it was inducted to the High School Hall of Fame a couple weeks ago. That good. But thank you, Steve. Honestly, that was really good. And I think well worth the visit.
And I know Mike did it went a little longer than expected, but I know there's so many intricacies and everybody up there might have different questions. So at any time, please email me if you're ever around, and you just want me to take you around, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right, great. So we have a bit of an agenda here, and I don't have a copy, so that's how my computer is open here. But so let's try to get through this. I think some of the items are pretty short, others, oh, yeah, that's it. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Everybody received an email of the meeting minutes from February 2nd. Yes?
Yes.
Any questions, comments? Otherwise, I would like to take a vote on approval of those minutes. If there's no questions or comments, I'd love to hear a motion on approval of those meeting minutes.
Motion.
One
Yes,
small,
please do.
small change.
Yeah.
At adjournment, my name wasn't listed, but I'm sure I voted to adjourn.
Okay, Frank, you get that? Thank you, sir.
And my name is Jessica. I'm Jess. This is like I'm
officially.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna, and I cannot, for some reason my computer is not. Let me just get on the internet real quick, sorry. All right, other than those two comments, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Motion. Yep.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. We have just motion approved. Tony seconds. We'll do a roll call just around the table, if you don't mind, Jess.
Jessica Riley,
Okay.
aye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Teresa James, I'll abstain. I missed the meeting. I was
Thank
on the
you, Lisa. Yeah.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Robert Worth, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
Mike Weber, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Mather Eldred, yes.
Bob Meany, yes.
Meredith Chamberlain, yes.
Bob Donahoe, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, that was an easy first item. The second item I think is fairly self-explanatory, but I kind of wanted to just run through it. So we talked briefly, as the meeting minutes described, about submitting again to the MSBA. The statement of interest from the town is due in April. Jeff, what is that date?
April, the 12th or 15th.
Okay. So generally, there was a discussion around that. Just to summarize, I'd like everyone to just voice their feelings again on whether we'd like to submit that statement, because as I understand how it's going to happen is we need to vote on, yes, we'd like that statement of interest to be submitted. And then the school committee would also do the same after us. and the Board of Selectmen or Board of Selectmen would now do that as well. So I believe that's the process that we need to go through. So honestly, we may or may not get MSBA approval. And that is something we can only find out come November, December, but we have to submit a statement of interest first. And again, at that time, if I'm correct, we can decline it if approved as well. So we have options no matter what, but in order to leave our options open, go ahead, Vincent. It is done by the superintendent and he basically, him and Mike will put it together and the Board of Selectmen have to sign it. As kind of the chief executive officer of the town.
So 3 signatures on it, chair of the school committee, chair of the board of selectmen, and superintendent. It's only just to submit, it's not anything else. No, you're not bound to anything.
And are there any associated fees with that or the license?
There are no fees,
It's
no.
just an application.
That's correct. So, Canada, I'll give you my opinion first. I think I gave it to you last meeting. We have nothing to lose, just submit it again. And again, we can always choose direction not to go forward with it. If we want to do a school on our own, if the town, that's what they decide, then that's fine. But again, it's a substantial amount of money and as Bill Werner will tell us, the cost of schools is exceedingly getting worse and worse.
The cost of building 100,000 square foot buildings is getting.
Correct. So I'd like to entertain a motion to. I guess the motion would be to have the superintendent or to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA, and that's kind of our part in the role, and then we can kind of go through that. Jeff, does that sound fair as far as what? the
Yeah, I
motion
think
would
you
be?
just want to, recommend to the school committee, the superintendent, and the board of selectmen that to submit as a lot.
That'll be,
Take care of it.
yeah, so the motion to recommend to the school committee as well as the board of selectmen to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA.
I think we should probably open it up to discussion.
Yeah, I was kind of
Because
offering that.
additional- I'm not gonna weigh on this.
Okay.
at all. I think that
I
the
don't see the
townspeople should
downside.
be talking about this, and then we can discuss it as committee as well. That's,
I just don't see a downside. We're not committing to anything if we don't put our name in, then that's that.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, as we entered this process, like. For me, the single, like the question I asked myself before I got involved was, can we be successful? And as I look forward, yeah, I think everything else that we're gonna deal with can be figured out. The one thing that's gonna be the biggest hurdle for this town is gonna be costs. And just knowing what I see every day in our business, like, it's not coming back down, and people are gonna be anchored in what they expected last time. And we're gonna get further down this path and we're gonna realize that's gonna be a multiple of last time. So like the idea that we wouldn't submit and just choose to go it alone, to me is frankly insane, because there's gonna get to be a point where we're gonna do the math. I know Mather, I think they like, I would love for you guys to come present on that, because I remember listening to one of the presentations, but I know you guys start to do a little bit of math and we know where rates have gone from here.
Actually, yeah, the meeting today, so.
And it's just gonna be like, that's what the cost is gonna be untenable. So the idea that we would like turn down 20, 25, $30 million because we want to go alone, to me, I just don't think will fly. So that's, I'm like fully in favor of at least starting this process and doing everything we need to do to show the MSBA that we're serious about working with them to be part of their process.
if I could just weigh in, having been here for a while, and I actually fully agree with Bill in that the smartest thing to do is to go with the MSBA if they should take us, because free money is rare and we will need as much help as we can get. However, I also know that the previous SBC had this very same conversation. And it turned out that the will of the town was not to accept that $19 million at the time for a building that was going to cost us 60. So I think that we are looking into the future right now with material costs And we are probably looking at a more expensive project with less kind of, you know, we have to figure out what the will of the town is. And if we cannot get the town to be behind the idea of the MSBA, which was quite frankly villainized a lot in social media. And again, it's one of those miscommunications that we really want to make sure that we are correctly putting this out there. I think that we all need to be aware that if the SBC decides that we need to apply to the MSBA, we need to have a very, very specific statement about why we believe it is the most important thing to do. And then we need to get that out. Because I think that we need to build an argument around what our thinking is. That a second SBC will not be questioned for the same decision. And I just think that that's both politically and, you know, we all say that we want this to happen. The things that kept it from happening last time were people saying that they didn't have enough input into things, right?
I think that's
So we need to discuss
I
this.
don't want
Yeah.
to keep rehashing.
No,
because
but we can't say that
The whole
thing
world, and this
didn't
whole
happen.
country was in a different spot, like everybody was fighting during
But
the
we can't-
pandemic, like, I just want to kind of like.
No, I hear you, but we can't ignore what came, right?
So,
We
No,
can
we don't
accept
have
it
to.
as data, so we need to be very sure that the entire group has a very specific idea that it's not just free money. That we believe that the MSBA process, that the things that they will ask us to do, which may or may not potentially increase the cost of the project, is something that we will then go to the town and say, this is why we decided to do this, and have a specific statement about it. And that's all I'm saying. I'm
Yeah, no.
not saying let's, you know, let's like rehash old times. I'm saying let's correct the mistake that perhaps was made before.
sure, so.
That would be at the point, though, if we got into the MSBA and decided to go forward with it, that's when we would need
That's
that.
possible, but that's, you know, we need to start having these conversations now.
That's fair, and I think Michelle's probably right, whereas that decision doesn't need to be made today.
But I think
But-
it's an
but-
important point.
I think generally just to agree and disagree exactly with you is that, just to look back for a second,
Yeah.
I would say it's probably a reason why we failed. There are some very good advantages to the MSBA
Oh, yeah.
program, and they mostly revolve around dollars.
Yes.
There's some not so great advantages in regards to the requirements. They require certain school size, classroom sizes that we may or may not agree with. They require, you know, there's things in their program that, you know, I'm not an educator, so I'll take the educator's opinions on that, but generally I felt like it wasn't necessary. I would also say that they have a process that is, you need to cross your Ts and dot your Is, which makes it also a longer process.
That is exactly.
So that's 4 or 5 years or whatever it may be from today. Whereas if if a private institution wanted to build a building tomorrow, they could do it in 2 years. So that's another big downside as well. So mostly I agree with the statement, and I agree with the general sentiment that we need to make sure that the public agrees with the reason behind going into it if we do get approved, but you know, there are pluses and minuses to the MSBA.
Right.
I would say candidly that the dollars matter probably most to everybody. And that's, you know, so you follow some of their guidelines and you get a bunch of money for it. But
And I
think
happen
you
to
submit-
like money. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't. I just think it's really important to have the discussion out loud and not feel like anything is implied.
Sure,
Because I think
It's a statement of interest. We're interested.
all I was gonna say is
We're interested in keeping our options open.
And I think,
know,
I think Mike's points are well taken. We can make a list of pros and cons.
Yeah.
We take a vote in the
Right.
end, but we share that with the community. Here's the pros and cons, and here's why we went this way. Versus, well, we can be very clear, like you said, like about all the pros and cons and why we pick it as an avenue. But if we don't say yes now,
Yeah, why
we
close
don't
that
have
door?
the evidence.
well, and maybe Jeff could speak to this better than I can, but if we submit a statement of interest and we're accepted and then decline, I don't know the people at the MSBA, but if I'm them and we want to replace Wheelock in 10 years, they're gonna make you wait 15. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, they won't say that, but I mean, it's just.
Well, I
common sense,
guess.
right? It's business.
and that's just kind of business, like, all right, so somebody else could have filled your slot, we're putting money aside from you and you you said no.
We might get one grace on
Yeah.
that. I'm not sure we will get.
Can't do that.
With that in mind, so that's one thing that I'm curious about, and I don't think we have an answer tonight, but is there any way to find out what the history has been of towns that have received, a go-ahead and funding from MSBA and not utilize that, either because of, other reasons or a no vote, such as us? Has there ever been a town that's received it and then the following cycle, they've received it again? Been granted to,
I don't know that answer. I know the not passing the vote part does happen infrequently, but it does happen. Similar to what happened to us as a town.
But
I'm not
deliberately turning down.
really
is a
turning it
whole
down is a
different
very
ballgame.
different. I have no idea.
no, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a good
But
question.
it's a huge amount of work, even get to the point, right? So if you decide that you're going to turn that down without having the data in front of you about what that would actually pay for, which is a year and a half, 2 years into the process, essentially. You're making a huge decision about people's time and what we would choose to pay for, right? Like, we're at that point kind of almost backtracked. Because if you're going for the MSBA money and you know what it's going to pay for, which is kind of, how much you're going to get, but you don't know what that will pay for in the kind of span of your project,
Sure.
right? So turning it down is a massive time waste, and I think that our kids deserve more than that. So I think that if we go for statement of interest and we get it, to say to the town, and I'm not sure that we're gonna take it. Just really. I think you have to be thinking very, very, very clearly about what that would be in 10 years, 15 years. And you
Yeah,
have to think about the amount of time that people have and our kids. They don't need to be in this building any longer than they absolutely have to.
I think we
So
just.
I would personally advocate for doing it. Absolutely. I think our town can't really afford very much in general, and I think that we need to take whatever money we get. But I think that those realities need to be also explained and put out there.
What's the alternative, though? Yeah, if we don't go for statement of interest, it's a year of more just studies and
It's,
understanding whether we want to go for a statement of interest next year.
No, it's a very good point. So currently, the alternative would be. So we have until April, right, which is not that long of a time frame with they have to vote on it in meetings and things like that. My gut tells me the alternative is to go alone. And you're fundraising private funds, and you're designing a much smaller building than the MSBA would let us build. For probably more money or equal to money than what you would spend anyways. Is my gut.
Yeah, I don't see why we would ever not submit. Honestly,
At this point,
I mean, I think it's not even a discussion. I mean, it's obviously a discussion because we're a board, but I think not submitting this is completely the wrong decision.
I don't think anyone said that either, to not do it. It was just.
Yeah, no, I think we should do it. I think we should just let's get moving. Time's a waste.
You want to motion?
I just think that we need to have a level of radical transparency here when we discuss even the smallest decisions. So that people understand why they need, because I think that is what people say they want to know, whether they avail themselves of that or not. That's what they say they want to know. So
Well,
we need to say it out loud.
Thank you, Jessica. Tony, I'm happy to hear a motion to recommend the school committee and the board of selectmen to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA.
I will make that motion.
And I will second.
And the superintendent, the school committee and the board of selectmen.
All right, let's do a roll call, Jeff.
Jessica Riley, aye.
Bill Werner, yes.
Teresa James, yes. Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Robert Worth, yes.
Mike Weber, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
I have a question because I'm here as a member and a voting member of the board.
Ooh,
So I think I'm going to have to abstain on this one. because I haven't had time to bring this to the warrant committee for air.
Are you gonna have to do that with all our votes?
I don't know. Quite honestly, I
You could
don't
ask
know.
them that,
I don't think you do.
I don't think so.
Okay.
but that's
Yeah,
fair.
I-
You can
you can-
abstain.
Seeing that the top, I'm willing to go out on a limb here because, you know, we're all in favor, so I'm gonna say. Warrant committee's in favor.
Sure, but generally speaking.
I will make that, I will have that,
Fair point.
I will have that conversation.
Yeah, I would, why don't we go with the roll call? Yeah, make that point.
Bob, meeting yes.
Meredith Chamberlain, yes.
Yes.
That's fine, thank you. All right, so that's great. Just going back rather to our point there. I think as in some of you guys are on other committees, I'm on a very small committee and, there's really only 4 of us now, so,
I mean, I am voted the representative for. the
yeah,
warrant
so I
committee,
guess
could
if there's anything that's like, hey, I don't know, we should probably not vote on it without your decision. Is really what I want to go, because if we have
Okay.
tight votes,
That's fair.
I would prefer you didn't.
That's fine.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's fair.
and anyone can abstain today, so that's not what I'm saying either. I mean,
No.
like generally speaking, if it's because the warrant committee needs to weigh in, let's have the discussion. You bring it to the warrant committee and then have the vote the next meeting, sort of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
The warrant committee doesn't need to decide about whether we submit the statement of interest or
Correct.
not. That's the other, and you know, I'm very comfortable as voting as a member of the SBC
Sure.
to recommend that we submit it, and then Michelle and I will bring that discussion back to the school committee, and then in essence, the school committee will then decide.
Okay.
Perfect.
You know, like you're only ever one small member of a larger body, right? So. in
That's
that,
fair.
That's
This is
what
the first
public
vote,
body-
so.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
You don't want to mess up. You don't wanna mess up.
Yeah,
Could the state stop granting funds in the future? I mean, you don't do it now. And I'm with Tony with this, you know, if you don't do it now, soon. Is the state sometime in the near future might want to stop funding projects like this.
So will the
sooner
MS
we get this in, the better off we are.
that's a really good question that Dr.
So
Marston.
1% of your sales tax, whenever you buy anything, goes to MSBA. So that's how they're funding it. It's
So it's
always,
not gonna go away.
it could, I mean, I don't know. it
The
could-
dollars
But it
go
would
up and
require
down.
legislation to make.
But percentages and all that.
Percentages go up and down,
They
so.
do.
Yeah, they go up and down based, the way I understand it, and it's very loose, so don't take my word for it, but it's basically, you know, larger school committees may all be in at once for some. Weird reason, and they, you know, they can only do 4 schools at one time, and
Yes.
next year they're able to do 8 schools and then 6 schools, so. I've seen numbers change like that, and it looked like it was based on size of school
Mhm.
more than anything else.
So there's a little bit of uncertainty and I'm not anywhere close enough to this, but. You know, obviously the millionaire's tax, $2 billion a year, is dedicated to infrastructure, education, like to the extent that they decide to allocate an extra $100 billion a year to the program, like, I don't know if they'll ultimately get there or not, but like. You're gonna want to have your name on the list if indeed something like that happens.
It also depends on what they're building. You know, if you have a lot of high schools, you know, we've always kind of done this. Elementary schools are, although the cost is jaw dropping, elementary schools cost less than a high school. So if you
High
have.
schools are starting at 300 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Lexington just got approved, they're looking at almost $500 million. I don't know, let's do this.
I'm pretty sure that we can take up, any other, comments generally speaking on the MSBA? And if there are questions specifically, I can write them down and get answers that, you know, I can't answer, but I'm always happy to do that. The next 3 items.
Did we complete our
don't-
vote?
Yes.
Did
Yes.
Mather wanna, okay, so I wasn't sure if Mather wanted to vote or. Okay, thank you. My apologies.
Yep, so we just put a little bit extra on Dr. Marston and Mr. Francesca's plate, so, but that's okay, they've done it before.
So obviously we'll get you a copy at the next meeting, you know, before we,
Yeah,
you know, we'll have to bring them to the board of selectmen, bring them to the school committee.
that's
Give
right,
you guys a copy, and it's April 14th, the submission date, so.
okay,
Well, I mean, it has to go to the school committee and board of selectmen now for
That's correct.
approval as well, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
before
yeah.
they-
I think, with a couple school committee members here, and I've heard from the board of selectmen, I'm hopeful that they'll just rubber stamp it as well.
I would hope so, but I think that, you know, it
Sure.
doesn't always go that way, so we want to just make sure that we have an extra time
Oh, yeah,
built in there.
I think it'll just remain on our, agenda list until, that actually is submitted. So we printed out an article, the Article 18 amendment that passed last year. Does anyone have a copy? Do you guys? I got 3 extras here. If you don't mind, just. Sorry about that. I think maybe the people. Mr. Brennan and. So I wanted to bring this up because this is the dollars that we have in front of us. This was asked at our last meeting. There were a couple points that were brought up at our last meeting specifically. Couple by this committee, a couple by the public as well, that I think we should just have a discussion around. And then I have a suggestion as well in regards to a subcommittee. But I'd like to just, if anyone could just read this Article 18 amendment from last year's our town meeting in May. We have basically this was the final Article 18 that was passed. So basically, this committee was awarded $250,000, and this is what we have. That's the amount of money we have to spend currently. And then this, as it says here, this is what we're able to spend it on. Generally speaking, I'd like to talk about and tackle currently at least one thing, if not 2. One being public outreach. Jess, I know that was a major, what you had talked about in the last meeting. I was very good point there. And the second thing that I wanted to ask, because I don't really understand, but I thought maybe we could at least get going on trying to tackle it because it seems fairly easy and sounds like we have to do it anyways, is an independent comprehensive school enrollment and capacity analysis. So I'd love to hear comments. I guess let's just stick on the public outreach one first. We had a good discussion on it last time. In kind of, I led the meeting off last time by saying, hey, look, if this is kind of, in my opinion, it didn't go well for whatever reason it may be, but because of that, we need to be super proactive in this. And we talked about as a group, because there were suggestions, no one said I agree or not, other than I think this was your idea, was getting some sort of consultant involved. And we have some funds to do that, to really understand what the public wants. So a new school, great. We need somebody to tell us with data points, in my opinion, how much are people willing to spend more on taxes, things of this nature that matter. What matters to them? Where is the school? Does that matter to them? Things that I think are important. And I'm sure other people have, ideas on that as well. So I'd love to hear some of those ideas and then follow it up on ideas of, I don't think us as a 12-person committee should tackle getting together a scope of work for an RFP. I think that should probably be handled by 3, 4, 5 of us. Anything less than a quorum candidate would be a good idea. So, yeah,
Yeah,
Tony, go for it.
so I'm not a huge fan of. I'll word this for. When wasn't there public outreach done before? Didn't we get all that information before? Why do we have to repeat it now?
I think that what I was saying is that this is a different project. That there were people within the community who had 2 different data sets. And I think that there is great value in independently having a trusted source, somebody who is not the SBC, somebody who's not the school committee, somebody who's not just a member of the committee who's real good at putting together surveys or whatever, to really dig down and see what our town is able to tolerate. Because we don't want to do this again and have it go south. So we need to have somebody who is actually expert in this particular data collection, who is able to scientifically talk to our town and ask them what they want, what they can tolerate, and what the possibilities are, right? Because we're talking about possibilities here, and we're talking about, and sometimes money and possibilities clash. We need to know what the town can actually tolerate, because we spent, or I didn't, but the community spent essentially 4 years putting together a plan. And in the last 3 months, That was when it hit people's wallets and it hit people's understanding what was happening. And there was a lot of misinformation out there. I think it's really important that we respect our town enough to say, okay. You said you couldn't do this. What can you do?
Yeah, but we just walked the school. It needs to come down.
Well, I gotta tell you, I walk the school with a lot of people. And a lot of people agree with that. Until the time that it comes to what they have to pay for it. And then what they have to stand up in front of their neighbors and vote for. And then, you know, we did not have a project that succeeded.
Right, but maybe the overall, I'm not putting any, you know, with the prior school building, maybe it just wasn't the right plan.
Right, so let's let
So-
the townspeople tell us that.
But what are they gonna say?
Well,
I mean, what are they gonna say? They're gonna say they don't wanna pay a lot of money for the school,
Right.
right? They're taxpayers,
Mhm.
but they want a new school. Because this
Right.
school needs to come down, or this school needs to be, it's something, so I'm not sure what we're gonna gain other than. That's my opinion, I mean,
I think for me, yeah, I would, sorry, were you done? I didn't know.
yeah, I'm just saying, we could get all the experts you want, we just walked to school, it's dysfunctional. I have no offense to you, I mean, he's doing a great job, but. You know, it was built in 1920, 1940, the boilers are oil burners, half of them don't work, the air conditioners don't work, the roof's leaking.
So how do we get that information out to people in a way that they will digest, understand? And then within the context of asking them what it is that they feel they can tolerate, how do we get that to pass? Because I have never been able to get. But how many voters do we have in town? It's about 4,000.
4,000 showed up to the vote.
Right.
9,000.
So
You
I've never been able to get 5,000.
You know how you do it?
in here.
have a solid plan, and we are confident in this plan, and you speak to that.
Don't you might need a public relations person, someone who's, that way to get everybody's thoughts and ideas done with one person who knows how to express that to the rest of the town.
That's a possibility, sure.
So that,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think that
that's probably.
what I'm saying here is that comes from this collection, finding out about a town, finding out what you don't know about a town. We're all sitting here assuming we know
Yeah, I mean,
how it failed, but I think that we're all feeling a different part of the elephant.
yeah, it's
We need
fair.
somebody who knows what an elephant looks like.
It failed for 1,000 different reasons, I could tell you right now. And
Right.
Tony, the public outreach done prior wasn't adequate enough, obviously, because our message didn't get through. So I don't,
And it
I was
wasn't
part of the
for
board, so
whatever
I thought it was
reason.
done fine, right? But the results speak for themselves.
But I think, this is my opinion, as someone who voted no. Okay, the school should be here, so you could have put any plan in front of the town. And I was just one of those that said, the school should be at Dale. Period, I mean, you know,
So.
it had nothing to do with costs, it really, that was
Some
really it.
people voted
It
no for
was
the
very simple.
cost, though, right? Some people voted no for
People
different
voted
reasons.
because of the cost. A lot of
Right.
people voted because there were, again, and this comes down to information and independent sourcing. There was a lot of implication and floating anxiety that was played up about the Wheelock spot, not so much about the Dale spot. There was a lot of implication and floating about water and archaeological sites and all sorts of kind of data that came in that was not vetted. We need to be able to have people be able to have a true and common ground discussion about what they want. So unless we get that
Yeah,
data,
please.
Sorry,
we're not
I
gonna.
just
we're not
want to
gonna-
be careful, maybe because my background is counseling and in school administration is just. I think when we say things like misinformation, I don't want to alienate every single person comes to every interaction in life. There's 20 of us in here right now. We are all experiencing this slightly differently. We could all walk outside and be interviewed, and we're gonna have a slightly different perspective of what happened. It's just human nature, so. I just want to be careful. I know we have to talk about the last process, but I want to be careful about how we talk about why people may have done X, Y, or Z, because I don't want to re-alienate the people that said no. I can tell you that talking to kids after I voted yes, I definitely believe there needs to be a new school. I definitely have my own concerns about kids living through construction. I have major concerns about that. But I don't know where my head is. I don't have a solid opinion anymore. And I just want to make sure, like, if we want to get the people that said no to now say yes, I don't want to say that certain people had misinformation or X, Y, or keep using that term, because people had information. They might have interpreted it one way than someone else. And I don't want those people to now decide that we keep saying misinformation. And now these same people are going to be mad because we're looking and saying, well, they had misinformation. I don't.
This
And
is,
that's why I think we need
Like,
to
I
have
don't want to read.
an independent data source.
I think this goes
We
back to
need
what
to
Bill
have-
said at the last meeting, where we need to have a common ground of facts that everybody understands. But I think the only way to get that is to have a third party individual who's able to help us figure out what those facts are that the town is going to be able to agree on and go forward with.
yeah, I mean, can I touch on a couple things? Like, so, like, I totally get it. And as we went into the, like, as we went into the process last time, like, I always tried to keep an open mind and like, and one of the things that always, that kind of, like never really got flushed out is like just as much as people wanted the building here. Like, there was never any survey done to say, like, if you had a kid in first, second, third grade, kindergarten, like, would you be comfortable with the building ever down and your kids being in trailers for, 3 years?
Well, that's not a good assumption. I'm not saying it'd be in trailer.
Well, no, but
Right.
but that's what you're making my point exactly, because that's what I get back to the common set of facts. Because if you ask a parent, are you okay with doing the construction at Dale? And they're assuming that their kids are gonna be in modulars, they may say no. If you say, no, actually, like, we've started to think through what it would look like, and this is how we would deal with it, then maybe they would say yes. And until like, and then, listen, there's a mosaic of like different permutations that like, we're gonna have to figure out what's enough to get to a starting point. But I think until you can start to break down some of the major rocks around, cost, like, rehab versus ad reno versus, some sort of hybrid where you're, building on a different lot. Like, I think I think as a group, we need to start to dig a little bit of that. And I don't know, I don't know how we get there before you start to get input. But I think if you leave everyone to their own devices, you're gonna get back information. And then when we get to make a decision, somebody's gonna say, well, that decision doesn't comport with, what they said in the survey a year ago. And you're like, well, the survey's based on bad information. They didn't know the 83 things that we just figured out over the last year when they took the survey. And so you're left in this trap of somebody saying, well, they're not doing what we said, we gotta blow it up, they're not listening. So that's like this is one of my giant struggles as we get going, is like, how do we be respectful of the town to get feedback so we can move forward in the right direction? While also making sure, like, we kind of flush out some of these key, like, gating items.
Don't you think that's part of the survey, Teresa? Sorry.
Yeah, I just worry like that, like, the survey becomes the
The rock.
rock that
Yeah,
everybody
that's
kind of
the
comes back to.
It doesn't have
And
to be a survey, by the way.
Right. And that's, again, this is not something that's an expertise for any of us, right? There are people who do this. Sorry.
So
Well,
Sorry.
I just, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think there's a balance between here. Like, it's not just one public outreach consulting company. I mean, it's that does this and then comes in and I'm gonna say saves the world and finds out what the town wants. It's a bit of both. We as a committee, I think, have to come up with what are those questions that we want to know to answer. And for me, it's kind of like a fresh start. Like, this is like a fresh start. What are the things that I want to know from the town? And I'm somewhat reflecting on the journey I went through with the Medfield State Hospital. And we had a consultant that we needed a consultant to come in but they weren't a public outreach consultant. They actually were a mediation consultant.
That's right.
Because what they did for us, but they played a public outreach role. But they helped our committee because we disagreed with some of the facts that our consultants were telling us, right? And so it was this balance of trying to help our committee, and they helped steer our committee through different sessions of public outreach and so forth. But it was very much in that kind of collaboration. So I'm thinking that there's some sort of balance
Yeah.
between us putting out and even doing a fresh start survey and learn from that, but then having another expertise and somebody else to help guide us through some of that.
So, one of the points I was thinking as I'm listening to everybody is we need a common set of questions that we have and that we feel the town has, and we probably need some input on creating those questions. And then, as has been mentioned here, we need a solid set of facts that pretty much are universally agreed to that, yes, that is exactly what the answer to this question is, and we all agree to it, pretty much. And then we're standing on something, we've mentioned solid foundations. We're standing on something rock solid that we can look at anybody and answer any question and know that that absolutely positively is the answer. And then we build up some integrity amongst ourselves that, okay, they know what they're doing, they know what they're saying, that, yep, here's the study, there it is, yep, that's it. And the other thing I go at is from my past life. When I arrive anywhere in any situation, I try very hard, always try very hard, to never assume that I knew what was going on. I asked questions, I looked at things, I talked to people, and with no endpoint in mind, I let information, studies, surveys, whatever it is, guide me and guide us to whatever the resolution is.
To your point, Bob, what's our facts? And then this is our problem statement. And this is what we're trying to solve.
So I really appreciate that. The questions and somebody to help us kind of navigate, right? While gathering facts, or no one's ever going to agree on everything no matter what. There's plenty of people right now that say the school is fine. I can promise you that. Probably 25% of this voting population in this town will say that tomorrow. Yeah. It's just what you're going to run into. So we're never going to all agree, but that's okay. If we agree, and we get the majority of our public to agree that that's what our kids and our educators need, then that's what we do. Because that's what we all volunteer to do. So I think that's kind of the mindset I've had since the beginning of 5-6 years ago when I started this. We're never all going to agree, and I really learned that, obviously. But I think it was really well stated there where Teresa, I appreciate you saying that as well, where we develop some questions that we want answers to, and the answers may come back 50-50, but that's okay. We just need to find it okay, so maybe that's not as important as we thought it was, or maybe that's something we'd tackle later, things of that nature. But I don't think that we can do that as 12 of us. And I also I know that I don't have the professional experience to do that.
Yeah, we need to be looking at, what is our sample? How are we scientifically picking that? How are we making sure that not just people who have strong opinions on one side or the other, must be Dale, must be Wheelock, sounds like we're doing the same thing again. How do we have someone find that and evaluate that population for us? And then how do we reach them? And how do we make that happen? Right? Because we all have day jobs and lives, and this is none of our expertise. So we can be very informed about what questions we want to have answered. I think that we need to also know what our town wants to have answered. Right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I
And we
think
need to have somebody who actually knows how to do that in a way that's not like, I bet we could probably put together a survey on,
no. Yeah, I mean, but going back to Tony's point, I'm very confident that this room right here can put together a rock solid plan to build a school.
Yeah.
With very little input whatsoever.
Mhm.
I don't disagree with that statement even a little bit. I think that that's why we're here. But I don't think that's the right way to go about it without at least having multitude roles of input And I will tell you, the last time, that's my only experience, I'm gonna refer to it a little bit. When we tried to have public like meetings, and we had a couple here, Jeff, and there was. Not much more attended than this, right? So it's challenging.
Yeah.
If you don't say, hey, by the way, the vote's coming next month and it's gonna raise your taxes by $1,000. Not a lot of people are interested to come out on a whatever night, right? It's very challenging to get, even parents of,
Yeah, it is, yeah.
yeah, it's hard, we're busy.
Right.
Our lives are busy, and everyone
We
is.
don't have the expertise, you know,
There's
there's somebody
There's
who,
many different ways to get to the people and that, and, one is trying to do a meeting, but you don't get a good turnout. And you get so much on Zoom and you can do mailings and you can stand on a corner and stand in front of Blue Moon with a little, by the way,
And I think we did all
live in
of those
Medfield, I want to ask you a question. So, yeah, so we have to do a variety of things, but I agree 100% with Therese and Bob that you can't just do it once, right? Because you have to look at it and go through and think about it and then go back, and that does take some time. And I also wanted you to say one other thing, because I agree, I don't want to keep going about the past, because I want it to be a clean slate and go forward. And I do feel when you say, Jess, that people came with misinformation, it makes it sound as though the people who voted no weren't smart enough to vote yes.
oh, that's not, absolutely not at all.
I
Please
think-
don't put those words in my mouth.
I'm not, but I'm just telling you how it can sound
Mhm.
to people listening to it. Is that I think some people were extremely informed about the choice and then didn't want it, and so it wasn't
And that's
misinformation.
fine.
And we need to know why they didn't want it, so we know
Mhm.
what the path to go.
But
I'm
there was
more
a lot of
optimistic
noise.
about how many people actually want Fixville. Because I didn't hear anybody say that this wasn't a problem school. Like anyone who looks at it says, yeah, this is. Whether you want to fix Dale and renovate it or go somewhere new, those are the other bigger questions. But
Sure.
I don't think a lot of people do see that Dale Street is, in need of some help.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody says that Dale, well, you can't, I don't think anybody says that Dale doesn't need to be addressed. But I think that people need to know what the process and the realities of building a school are, and we need to get somebody else to do that and devote resources to that. So that it no longer gets into that kind of scrum that we had towards the end there. You know, and I'm not saying that I'm saying that there were a lot of people who were putting out information that they had heard or they thought, or, I heard somebody say that we were, going to build Wheelock on a Native American burying ground. How could we possibly do that? And they were serious, and I appreciate that. But it was because we did not have a single source of information that was truly trusted and at least perceived to be neutral. Because it had gotten into a place, and I think that Teresa's idea around mediation is good.
Okay.
How much?
So what are we trying to
Well,
decide?
hold on, one more comment and then I'll think.
Realize a lot of you folks have been through this, so you've learned quite a few things through your process. Some of us are new. I do agree with you that we do need somebody to steer us in the right direction. Not so much the right direction, but to learn from the mistakes. I hate to use the word, learn from the mistakes that we've made. All right, and to avoid making them again. All right, as for this terminology, independent comprehensive, maybe it's just me.
That was my writing, so
Analysis.
by all means, please mark
Well,
it
it's
up.
probably exactly right, but from the private sector, and I did bring up the term public relations. That might not be the right term either, but it's someone who listens to all of us. We get down our bullet points, all the bullet points, and we need to advertise to sway any people who voted against, to try to get them on basically our side. So that could be just like you can get an engineering company with planning and develop that expertise that can put together bullet items and boards, and we'll get into the newspaper to get the information out there. So people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're trying to get through it. But I do agree, we do need something or somebody or a small firm to help us. And also, I do think public relations will go a long way. Getting some advertisement out there, even if it's just in the local paper, so people are aware of what's going on.
Thank you. All right, so in the interest of time, let me just do a couple of things. So generally speaking, I don't think that we need to vote on this, but why don't we hold this decision for this till next meeting, just as timing wise. But in the meantime, if you could email me, if not your opinion on the matter, but rather if you're interested in volunteering for a possible subcommittee, that would be great. And use the Medfield School emails, please. So I think we can vote on whether we're going to hire it before that. We have the full-on discussion, make this one of our top items next time. Just want to get through these next couple items in the next 10 minutes, just so we can get out of here.
What is a subcommittee?
So the subcommittee would be preparing an RFP to go out and find somebody like that we think we need help with. So really a statement of interest for an RFP. To say, hey, look, if the majority of us feel like we need some help from somebody else, then I think a subcommittee should handle
Now,
that.
this can be again, an iterative discussion, right?
Yep.
Right now, we know we need some level of information, some kind of level of a plan, and we can kind of come up with that. That firm does not need to be the same firm. It doesn't need to be an enormous scope of work. We just need to know it's being done right and not in between the end of our day job and when we're out for a meeting that night, right? Like it needs to be comprehensive and held as important. That bringing our community in is the most important thing.
I agree with the last point especially. All right, so that was that. I think I guess I want to ask a real quick question and then.
So, can I just,
Yes,
I'm gonna
please,
reflect on Medfield State again. There was another subcommittee that I gotta give kudos to that made it work. And that was the communication subcommittee.
I think that follows exactly.
Because they were the people that helped build the interest. They made the outreach. With their communication efforts, being regular and regular cadence. With what the news was, what the process was, and really educating those interested as we went through the process. So it wasn't,
Was that a subcommittee?
it was a subcommittee of our committee.
Okay, well, my concern is that.
Did it have an outside person or was it just a subcommittee of your?
Of our,
Okay.
and Jess, I'm just saying that that's what
Yeah,
they were a key.
And they did a great job.
Key stake, they were, yes. So
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's one reason we became successful.
I think that's very, in the future, I think we certainly need that, as we move along. So again, if you're interested, and again, we don't have, I don't plan on forming it, I just think we should discuss it more specifically because Tony brought up some good points as well. I just want to make sure we agree on this. And then, I don't want to spend time getting an RFP together. We're not prepared to spend any money on it. It's just a waste of time. We should agree in high level form that, and if someone disagrees with me, please speak up about this, about anything. I got one email in regards to a co-chair. Thank you. I was hoping or thinking that we could actually vote on that next meeting. So, if anyone else is interested, that's great. If not, that's great too, but I think that should be also a discussion. So generally, that's where I stand on that. As I stated in the first meeting, I was asked to be the interim. I'm happy to do that, but I'm also, kind of I'm gonna be part of it anyway. So, regardless, that's where I stand on that. So I don't think we need too much discussion, other than I'd like to vote on that next meeting. I'm gonna do I think a good rule of thumb that I learned going through the last process is to kind of give you guys as much heads up as possible on when there's actually going to be a vote. I think the MSBA thing was kind of self-explanatory. We talked about that a little bit, but just generally speaking, the information question that gives everyone some time to actually think about it. And I don't necessarily think that's the biggest deal either, because chairs can also change throughout the course of the process.
Just so I know what you're looking for a vote on whether to have co-chairs.
No,
or
we have a co-chair. I was wondering if anyone else wanted to be, throw their name in the hat as well. I just wanted to not like close it.
Okay,
So, that was all. And
So
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the next meeting, we're gonna look to vote on
the vote on,
this. On this,
I'm not sure how that actually works, but I think that we should at least form a subcommittee at the next meeting. If we are in agreement forming it, and I think I'd like to have. I'm gonna do some research and try to get some general ideas of what something like that would cost, high level. Or, the RFP would, we could. The cost will really we'll only know once the RFP is responded to, really,
Right.
but that's kind of how that has to work.
Well, and also, I mean, I guess I have kind of a concern about, and this is for the building people in general. Is $250,000 going to cover, I suspect that, the PR or mediation person would be a very small percentage of this, but will it also be enough to cover what this says, which is that it has to include within that 250 public outreach, independent comprehensive school enrollment capacity analysis, not big ticket items, obtaining soil borings, topographical studies, land surveys, wetland surveys, preliminary site.
Is there money in the warrant? Or is this our money until like?
I
No,
mean,
I know,
this is,
so, but I'm asking in the upcoming town meeting.
no ask right now for.
No, yeah.
Alright,
so
we got-
$250,000 is not going to cover the laundry list, I think, and somebody tell me if it will,
Absolutely.
all the things that we see.
I will say most of this stuff is
Yeah.
further in the future, but also some of it's already done as well. So,
So, to some, I think that to some extent, my concern is that, and we'll have to ask Christine about this when she gets back, that, is this something that, we are supposed to be doing within this $250,000 within a certain period of time, only within this, because it really is the.
there's no
The
time
amendment
limit on it.
itself
I mean, that's why I printed it out. I don't see a time limit.
No,
I don't see anything other than $250. That's a data point. The public outreach was the data point I wanted to talk about tonight too.
Okay.
And then I just want to get a clarification from maybe Jeff, you probably know better than me. Chris, you put this in here, so I'll even ask you. An independent comprehensive school enrollment and capacity analysis. So I get the comprehensive school enrollment capacity analysis part. What is independent?
that's a great question.
Private company, right?
but don't we-
That's what
don't
we've
we-
done.
Yeah,
Don't we
Previously.
have this
Hold on.
information?
Yeah,
we
Tony.
just-
Go ahead, Chris. If you don't mind, I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, I
you.
had mentioned this at the last meeting, Chris Scott, 7 Birch Street. So I amended this because after looking at some examples of other districts, Wellesley in particular hires a firm called Future Think. Future Think, if you go to their website, offers an incredible array of services, everything from enrollment analysis, looking at your entire district space to say, okay, how many students can you fit in your existing space? Where can you make space for other students? They offer a variety of services. So the reason I amended this was not to make this a mandate to do this, but just add the menu of things that the money could possibly be used for, so that somebody wouldn't come back and say, you can't use it for that.
No, and I appreciate that. I think the one thing, okay, I appreciate you answering that as well. So, future space, I've been on their web.
Unfortunately, it is.
Future think rather,
Under including.
I think, the most important thing I get out of that particular red portion there is, and this may be where I might disagree with NESDEC a little bit, is the enrollment study. So of where the enrollment will be in 10 years, 20 years. NESDEC, we do have this information. We pay for this information as a town already. Jeffrey, how long do they do it?
We have it twice a year and it goes out 10 years.
10 years. So every
They're
6
pretty
months.
good. I mean, the issue with enrollment in the last project was not NASDAQ, it was from MSBA.
Okay,
That was the issue.
that was the issue.
But I mean, whatever you guys want to do.
Right.
Um,
So,
So can I ask a clarification? So there was there's two opinions on enrollment is what
The one that matters is MSBA, because they looked at, if we were in the program.
When they're involved,
Yeah.
when they're involved,
yeah,
their
that's
opinion on enrollment is the one that matters.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
They say design the school, so we have 390 whatever students in here now.
Okay.
We were going to build a school for the exact same grades, and they want us to build for how many students?
They
Well,
actually
we
wanted
did
us
here and
to.
asked for 450.
Okay.
Right.
And they wouldn't do it, they wouldn't let us leave the room without doing one a lot higher than that.
So
What was,
Okay.
what?
And then we went back to them after a year into the process and they said, yeah, you can change it, you're going back in the program again, starting all over. So at that point, you can't do that, you're already in feasibility.
Hey, Jeff, having gone through the process, like going to them with like a second data source, is that helpful? Like
No,
knowing that,
No, they're responsible, we trust our, that's what we've got them.
So. Yeah, I don't
We can pay
see why
for
we
it.
do this.
So I don't disagree.
Maybe go independent, right? Like if we ever didn't get it in and we decide.
Yeah, it sounds like a waste of money.
It's not
Waste of
the same,
money.
but if
I mean,
we
I
did,
think
then
you have
we
to look
want
at this too, is we have theoretically $250,000. What's the best way to spend this?
Yeah.
All right, so I have my own opinions. I know everyone's got other.
okay,
That should not be a difficult thing to do, though. Like, I do this myself. I mean, this is not getting comprehensive school enrollment and capacity analysis and predicting, 5-10 years out even. It's not,
Well, we have it too.
it's not rocket science. Like, we have it
We already
and
do it.
MSBA does it. If we pay someone to do it, it shouldn't necessarily be a large portion of their work. Like, I don't anticipate them making it like it shouldn't be like a 3-4 month study.
This is why I brought it up. I have no idea.
Let me ask two questions. Jeff, if we're gonna do it ourselves, would you want a second data source in terms of enrollment? Or would you trust if we were building our own school XMSBA?
I wouldn't do it for us. And that's why we have NESDAQ. They do that for us as part of what they did.
I think what
And they've been
Bill
really
is
good.
asking is if we decide to go out on our own without MSBA. And we were to
Oh.
pull a data source, would we want to also have a second?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I think so,
yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so
Okay.
that'll tell me either way. We'll at least go out and,
Yeah.
give a call and get costs and see what they want and figure out how it fits. I think the more important point, I'm just thinking forward in terms of like, we're gonna be doing this for a long time. And if town meeting becomes a spot where we need allocation of funds and we get to October, like, we don't want to have no powder to be able to do anything until the next town meeting. So I don't know how we go about that, but it kind of feels like time's of the essence to figure out how we get some sort of allocation, so we're not left sitting on our hands for some period of time in the future.
Well, this is the allocation, right? I mean.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, this is the previous.
We missed the
allocation.
vote for the warrant this coming.
Yeah.
So well, that feels like, I don't know if there's anything to be done at this point. It feels like that at least.
No, but then you're looking at a special town meeting and you have
Exactly.
to ask for money,
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
So
And,
Which
I-
just increases churn and increases, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, I don't know the procedural of if. Like the board of selectmen wanted to reopen up the warrant to say, bring something on, like what the timing that is, but like,
Present it on the floor, but
what's
You
that?
can always. bring
present it on the floor, but yeah.
If we really feel that a town meeting.
Like, you see some of the stuff
There's necessity for that.
from the previous study, like some of these things are still relevant and valid.
We did numerous amounts, and I can't name them all off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
we have all the data. Both
That's
at
good.
this site as well as the Wheelock site, pretty much those two. There was some preliminary studies done on 6 sites, I believe, maybe 8. Where we're like feasible, you could put 100,000 square foot building on. Like, in feasible is a rough word there, because really it would have probably fit on 3 or 4. But the real data was done on this site as well as the Wheelock site, and more specifically, the Wheelock site, once we started heading down that direction. But there is a fair amount of stuff on this site as well as. As far as wetlands, as far as,
The site alternative analysis type thing.
yeah, that type of stuff,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, I
Land
don't,
surveys, that sort of stuff.
I don't want to ask for more money if we don't need it, because I think that
Those-
people have sensitivity to us asking for more money than
Yeah.
we spent last time. But I also don't want to be, I don't want to be left where we can't do what we
Can't
need
do
to do
anything
for some period of time.
So, I mean, generally, we don't know how much we need until we get some. I mean, that's where that public feedback thing is something we can work on with limited funds to say, hey, look, we can get our ball rolling a little bit, right? If the town came back with the hard data fact in 5 months from now and said, it has to be at Dale Street. Well, guess what, guys? Then we can focus on one spot. You know what I mean? Like that's all I'm saying. Chris, you wanted to say something earlier?
Yeah, I just wanted to also just be even more like, be clear about this particular amendment because the school enrollment and the capacity analysis are really two separate things. The capacity analysis, what this firm does, is they look at your entire district, K to 12, and they say, okay, how is this space being used in every single one of the buildings during the day? How could you potentially free up space K to 12 in another building that you may not be using,
Sure.
and that you could actually reconfigure your grades to take better use of the space? I mean, and actually, if you look at Richard Disorder's article that he's written over the years, our grades have changed over and over again. So that's what that particular consultant does. They'll look at your K to 12 and see where you might have opportunities to
Great.
move some grades around.
Appreciate the clarification. And that's another thing is grade configuration, things like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything off the table.
No,
That way.
thank you for the clarification. All right, in the interest of time, we have one more quick topic in the discussion. So this came up via some emails that were received, and generally I just wanted to have a very brief discussion because it's getting late in regards to Jess, your school committee term is ending.
26 days.
Yeah.
And maybe Michelle, can you help
I'm
me
happy
with
to
this one?
take this.
Yeah.
So basically, the school committee, as you may or may not know, comprised of 5 people, and 2 of our more senior members are graduating, for lack of a better word, at the end of the month. We'll be taking on 2 brand new members after the election. The school committee is also about to embark on creating a strategic plan that will guide the district with our goals and initiatives for the next 5 years, and the heavy lift happening in that space will be April, May, and June. So a proposal that I made at the last school committee meeting was to ask Jess if she was okay to stay on the SBC through the end of the school year, allowing the school committee to evaluate what makes the most sense in regards to the individual that would take her seat. Tim and I are not allowed to serve together on the SBC. Leo served on the previous SBC and also travels a lot for work. So his travel situation may have changed, and that's something we can discuss as a school committee, but previously it's likely going to be one of the new individuals that would take that seat.
And I know everybody here totally wants me in the room much longer than I originally anticipated.
So prior to making that proposal to the school committee, I did some additional background info in regards to reading the bylaw committee's agendas and their meeting minutes to kind of see if they had any robust discussions around how this transition was going to take place. I didn't see anything specifically. I reached out to the other appointing authorities to kind of get their spin on what that would look like to keep a member on for a little bit longer in order to ensure a smooth transition, to have success for both groups. And the feedback was kind of just reach out to Mark Sorrell, town council, and see what his thoughts were. And Anime, I believe, reached out to him, and he doesn't see any conflict with the bylaw. So where we're at right now is at the next school committee meeting, we would discuss what that looks like for us. But as this decision affects this committee as well, I just wanted to see if there was any thoughts or feedback to take back to the school committee. And again, the overarching goal is to create a smooth and positive transition for both groups.
So thank you for explaining the situation. I will tell everyone here that we don't have a say in the matter. So that's like number one, like it's not our choice. It can either be the appointing authorities, which were the various committees, or Scott.
Obviously, I think the school committee would take your opinions
That said,
very much to heart.
thank you. That said, it was asked to bring it up to have, does anyone have any opinions?
I think it's a good idea.
So
Makes sense.
I'm actually in the opposite camp.
Oh,
I think we are newly formed. This is only our second meeting, with the first one kind of being just introductions. And I understand it's a lot for somebody to jump into both at the same time, but I just feel like I would want them to be hearing everything we're saying and really being a part of this as soon as they can. So I'm of the opposite camp.
well, no, wouldn't that person start?
They wouldn't be participating.
not,
Oh, wouldn't start right away.
It would be like 2 or 3
Oh, I
months through
see.
the end of the school year.
Oh, I-
Yeah.
Michelle, you'll be here.
Correct.
You won't change. So
Correct. It won't be like it'd be two new people, it'll be you, and then one of those two new people who join at the end of the month, right?
Correct. I mean, that's likely the scenario because Tim and I aren't allowed to serve on this together.
More than
right?
likely, yeah, I think we're really talking about April meeting, March meeting. Probably, and then that'd be two.
What we're gonna be reviewing. Are they gonna be bringing like our proposal? You know what I mean? I just feel like there are things that are happening in the next couple of months that I just personally would want that.
Yep.
That's just fine.
That's all.
I have no feelings about it, being honest with you, like, if my actual feeling or being said, Michelle knows this, like, I don't. To some extent, I will always follow, and you'll probably see me sitting here in the front, but I don't feel the need to stay another month, but if it makes it easier for the committee and for the group.
I think
I'm
it
happy
also
to do
allows the
that.
school committee, though, to evaluate who makes the most sense to sit in this seat. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's beneficial for this group or the school committee to just have us all that first day be like, who's gonna do it, right? Like, we should have the opportunity to look at what, you know, their interests are and what value they would add and what that makes sense for both committees going forward. And I guess I just feel like understanding that there's also other groups represented here, the warrant committee and planning board and PBC, like there's other scenarios throughout the next 4 or 5 years where we're going to have to deal with transition. And I think we want to be thinking thoughtfully about it in a way that affects the group in a positive way. My thoughts.
So thankfully, I believe at the next town meeting, there is a warrant article open to handle future transitions, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's just an appointment.
Just an appointment.
Correct.
Okay.
To be able to add more ex officio members.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm mistaken with
Bylaws.
I don't have a strong opinion, so I'm just gonna like with brains, I could. Yeah, and honestly, like, I actually think it's not a big deal either way, because we're talking about 2 meetings, but that's really how I feel, so I'm happy to defer to school committee, to the board of selectmen, to the other, the warrant committee, like whoever else is gonna appoint people, like, I don't.
And there's also 12 people here, and people are gonna be absent from week to week, like, it's, if somebody wants to get appointed, jump in when they're ready, like. That's the other option too, like.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but I feel like the challenge you're gonna have there, and again, just from a bylaw standpoint, like, we can be in quorum with 7 people. We can't vote unless we have 8 people present. So I recognize there's going to be people missing, but when we look at the overall number, I don't think it again serves this group to say we're just gonna have a seat empty for a little while.
And that's fair too, I think,
For me, it's 2 hours, and I mean, so. You know.
Or-
Doesn't bother me.
Or, I mean, you don't even have to set a June thought, do you, Michelle, can you just, I mean, you'll have a new school committee who has to just vote on it anyhow. But maybe you'll say they're ready in April or they're ready in May.
Yes,
Like,
that's
I don't-
totally possible. My
Yeah.
proposal was more the end of the school year because it made time from a school year standpoint, and I felt like that. But yes, it could definitely be sooner if that's what the school committee felt made the most sense.
I'd like to think if someone's running for school committee that they know about this board, and that they probably want to be on it.
That's why I'd rather have their.
Yeah, I just like
If
if I'm
I'm voting on things the next few months, I would want the person that's
Yeah.
staying to be the one that's.
Give
voting
them
on
time
these
to catch up.
At the same time, I don't think anything earth shattering is happening, so I just want to continue the discussion and make sure everyone understood what was happening and I appreciate all the comments, but again, we don't make a decision, and I think it's really good to hear from people about this stuff, just because that's being left in the dark or finding out about it another way is like bad way to go.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate your comments. Again, whatever you guys decide. We'll live with that's kind of what it is. So
I just have a different opinion. That's fine. It's gonna happen.
we're gonna have plenty.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Okay, next meeting.
Sorry, Mike,
Yeah.
can we just do one informational?
Yeah.
So I took the opportunity to visit Robert Worth's school.
Oh,
And I just wanted to give not only a shout out to his school, but if anybody else has the opportunity to go visit his school, I strongly recommend, especially after seeing this school today. So his school, I think, was built around the same time as parts of this school.
It was a little newer. It was, I'd say it was in similar shape as far as like It's a slab school, so there's no basement. That's, one of the primary differences. It's also smaller. It's a smaller school, but I think just like coming to a common understanding of like what an old building looks like, what a brand new, site specific building looks like, and then what an ad reno type building looks like. There's no rush, but I think it might be helpful. Just walking through it, I think was helpful. We were having conversations, and then to walk through this school, which I've actually never been in, it was helpful in the same day. So to kind of see the side by side, it's really interesting as we move forward.
What's your school?
It's called the Burrell Elementary School in Foxborough. It's about 18 minutes away from here. And it was also an MSBA project. It was about, I want to say it was 63, so it was a 61.
Those part, but not.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was,
And when was the MSBA voted?
it was just completed last year.
Last year.
So this is actually our first full school year,
Okay.
in the school.
I would love to go see it.
But it also highlights some of the, there's clearly like some MSBA traits in the building. Like you can see like I was just talking to Carolyn earlier, there's no auditorium, right? Like it didn't include an auditorium because it's not part of that. So which is fine. It's totally fine. Yeah, we have a cafeteria, we have a beautiful gym we use as an auditorium. It works. It works for us. So I think that it also highlights some of the ways that, you can make those things work, especially when you're getting a considerable amount of money. So. I'd welcome anybody, anytime.
I think we try to set that up. I don't know how that works, if we can go together without a
We
meeting.
did that last time we went to the new, actually the
Does that count as a
really beautiful,
meeting?
but you can have a meeting. Call a meeting and then you can go.
Call a meeting and then go.
Yeah, it's something that you can actually do. You can do site visits or whatever. We went up to Harvard last year.
Do we
Well, I was
want-
on it. I just went.
Do we want to maybe wait till the weather and like maybe do that in
Mhm.
April, something like that?
Sure, yeah, I mean, honestly, whenever, there's no urgency, it's just.
I'd like to do it with kids, maybe after school, but like, when it's active with like.
Sure,
school, not
yeah.
summer.
Yeah, we have an after-school program, we have a before-school program, so.
Yeah, so like obviously after the children leave for the day, but.
Yeah.
maybe Around your schedule, obviously.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Anything else from the public while we're here?
Chris Butskin, I just want to reiterate, I think what Teresa said earlier about, how phenomenal the planning process was for the state hospital and the communication subcommittee. I think that, I'm a PR person with 30 some years of experience and credited. I went through a really crazy process to get that accreditation. And I can say that when I look at the state hospital project and also the master planning project, we have planners in town, sadly one is leaving, who did a phenomenal job. And I think you kind of have to look at it as more of a planning project and not a PR project. Because so much of it is about listening to the community and hearing what they have to, what their thoughts are, what their reactions are, what they're interested in, and not trying to push information out to them, but to bring them in. And I would even say, starting with these meetings, just trying to figure out just making sure, like the documents are, part of the packet, when the meetings are scheduled. I mean, there's simple things, protocols for the
Is
meetings.
that a shot at
themselves.
me not having it in Article 18?
Yeah.
I'll take it. That's fine. That's a fair point. Thank you.
We need to see if anybody on Zoom has questions.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a decent amount of people that are
Really?
on the side there. 20.
If they don't have their hand raised, that's usually how you see if they have.
I can't really see, I can see a bunch of little initials, purple M right there.
Now that we're in person, it's hard to remember that we have an audience.
Anyone have
Can that, will that
So
reach
Mike
me?
just tell them if they.
I don't know if there are.
Yeah, if there's any public comments on Zoom.
We're already come unplugged, so.
Yeah.
All working now.
Use this here if you would.
Okay,
Got it, right?
Mike, do you want to read it from here?
yeah, sure, thank you so much. All right, okay. Somebody hacked in here. We'll ignore that one. All right, let's leave, Tom, if you don't mind, Tom lives here in town, so I'll just read this question. Usually like that, people just have their address. Tom said, I honestly believe,
Do we know Tom's last name?
Tom Powers. I honestly believe there are 0 taxpayers who voted against the proposed building due to their impression that it was being put on an Indian burial ground. To indicate otherwise seems to ignore the fact that the proposed project is not what the voters were willing to pay for. Time for new voices and opinions. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah,
And-
just to clarify, Tom, that was one thing I heard from one person. I didn't think that the entire.
It was kind of hyperbole overall.
I'm sure.
So, I think that we are done with those questions. So,
That was an easy one.
there was another one, we'll leave it alone.
That's good.
Okay, next meeting, everyone, real quick, I was looking at a similar time frame, generally speaking, and that would be maybe March 29th or 30th, Wednesday or Thursday. Thursdays kind of stink personally, but I'll make it work if it works for the group.
Wednesday's
I'll put a double sync on Thursdays.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
Thursday's the school committee meetings.
We don't have one that day.
I can do either
So,
day.
but in general, if you're starting to have
Everybody else.
specific
We
meetings.
look at it Tuesday or no?
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Tuesdays I can.
No?
It works. I mean,
Maybe we rotate which day of the week it is, just so everybody's schedule, I don't know, like if Thursdays are better.
Yeah, I think I'd
do
love-
Wednesdays next time and then maybe.
you stay away from Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
So like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays.
You don't want to hang out your
Warrant hearing
credit.
is Tuesday.
Is it, well, knowing that you won't have,
Saturday
hold on.
night?
I am just saying,
Good.
knowing that you won't have,
Yeah,
your ex officios
Tuesdays are tough.
or your school committee
Just 'cause the
meeting
board selecting meets on
Select-
Tuesdays, so we just
So let's
folks
alternate.
on a
Let's
Thursday.
shoot for three,
Thursday, yeah.
let's shoot for March 29th.
I mean, I don't care, I
It's a
don't
Wednesday.
here, but
Perfect.
just
What time? 7?
logistically.
Let's do 7.
I think seven's fine, generally though, but,
Whatever time.
they're going there, this was a little long because we did a tour. I'd love to keep these, like, I'm gonna do my best to cut some people off if I have to at times, just because, you know, it's a long night, so, we'll try to keep the 2 hours of my whole point. So 7 PM, on the 29th. I'll shoot for that, any major problems, and if you have to miss, we have to miss, but like, obviously, I want everyone here because, this is important. I think we had some really good discussion again. I'm starting to get to know you guys a little bit more. I appreciate everyone's opinion, but I don't know. It works better when we're all engaged.
Yeah, the town hall.
Yeah, at the town hall, yes. Thank you.
Um,
Not here.
I was talking to Brittany and we were talking about how the room isn't very big enough for the size of us, the selectmen's meetings, which she was trying to look at other spaces where we can sit and see each other. Because that place for the select people, it's just not big enough for all of
How
us.
about the public safety building?
Yeah.
That's
Bubble, that
what
room?
they
In
mentioned.
that room?
Hey, you can rearrange those chairs.
Okay.
That's
Whatever you
doable.
said.
So it doesn't have to stay in line up.
Well, why don't we check with the town, see if that's available that night, if you don't mind?
Yep.
I think that'd be great. We'll shoot for the public safety building then.
You can always use the high school one as well. High school library, if you want to use that too.
Oh, that's true,
Whatever
yeah.
whatever you want.
Thanks, Jeff. All right,
Want to pick another meeting? I mean, just so everybody puts it on the calendar. Do you want to,
I'm fine with that.
do a new one? Yeah, early April.
Well, we're meeting March 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe
Mid-April.
Wednesday April vacation.
Well, you got Easter the weekend before too,
I did
so
that.
April's a little.
I want to do like, well, I mean, we could,
17. Week of 17.
yeah, so maybe the week of the 24th, is that what we're looking at?
Will you be able to have, would you be able to have the statement of interest by that next meeting?
Yes.
Thank you for asking that, because that was.
I gotta ask everything I can. It's my last meeting.
It's up to you guys, that's to someone else.
know, it's totally good.
All right, so. Yeah, so then at that point, did you want to try to Tuesdays are bad for the warrant, is that right? All
Warrant committee meets on the twenty.
I can't read.
right, so then we have a couple people that can't do that. So want to go back to Thursday if that's better, or Wednesday the 26th?
We could just rotate Wednesdays and Thursdays, otherwise it's still be really.
Okay.
27.
We'll shoot for 4/27.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll figure out time and place, as far, any place rather, later. Okay, anything else I missed?
Do you want that April meeting for us to meet earlier and go to Robert's school that day and then? combine
Yeah,
it?
why don't we have that as a discussion item next time?
Okay.
We'll get a date, Robert, if that works for you, if you don't mind. Try to do it before the April break.
Yeah,
Or maybe even during, I know, way, whatever.
yeah, whatever. Like I said, there's no rush. I think that like that's more of something that I think might be helpful as a committee as we move
Forward.
like way kind of far down the road,
Yeah.
but yeah, whenever.
I think we're all interested, it kind of gets the juices flowing a little bit, for sure,
Sure.
but why are we here, right? All right, very good, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Or any new business, I'm sorry, any new business that I missed from the board? Committee,
Mather, when's the town meeting?
Early May.
Oh, early May, yeah,
I wrote this down, it's May,
Monday and next.
yeah.
first Monday in May,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, May 1st.
May 1.
I just want to make sure we have time to, I think we need to do some sort of formal motion, time to discuss it.
Bill, that's something I think we should think about between now and March 29th.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put some thoughts on paper, I'd love to, if you want to get it on the agenda, then just reach out. That's fine. Anyone else, by the way, there's an agenda item that you want to discuss, like, please just shoot me a note, give me a call, if I'm happy like this. I think that's fine. I accept this one based on the last meeting, but if someone's got a strong opinion like that, let's have a discussion about it here, because, especially because it's time. All right. Good. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
You do.
Second, we get a roll call?
Jessica Riley, I.
The winner, yes.
Teresa James, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Robert Worth, yes.
Twenty Papa Thomas, yeah.
Michael Weber, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Matter of, yes.
Bob Meany, yes.
Man,
Thank you, everyone.
You do a good job of the meetings.